So I guess I'll call us to order.
Is that all right? Can we do it? Is that legal? All right.
Oh, there, that one says 416, this one says 411.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's 4:16, we're good, yeah. That's why I was wondering if it was, yeah.
Or is that a timer clock? No, that's
I mean, it is 4:16 right
So
now.
that one
Okay.
switches between timer and clock, depending on some magic that communications does over here.
It's magic.
And this magic is wrong.
Not magic.
It's the kind of wrong that isn't correct twice a day. It's wrong
All the time,
always,
yes.
yeah.
That's the problem with digital. The transportation meetings I went to, there were 4 staffers, one level below the secretary at all. I mean, they seriously want to get this information out there and want cities to apply for this money so that the projects get done. And their message, the highest ranking person among them, she started off all her comments with apply, apply, apply. You know, don't let this money go unspent. And they especially want cities like ours who are good at building roads and the kind of roads that they want to be doing this. And I talked with a couple of them, and the worst thing we can do is to not spend the money, you know, to create these wonderful programs and have them go away or get clawed back. So they're very excited about pushing us forward. I don't have specific
And none of
things.
this is getting clawed back at the moment, or like it's.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah, none of this is ARPA. This is all. That's not true. So there's probably some ARPA in here because there's information about lots of different grant opportunities in here. But the thing I wanted to call y'all's attention to specifically, and not just forget about and think 6 months from now, I wish I had told other commissioners about this, is this local infrastructure hub that the Conference of Mayors and the National League of Cities have built with money from Bloomberg and Ballmer and Ford and everybody else. It's a gateway for people who aren't very good at seeking grants to be able to find the grant opportunities. Now, obviously, we are not, the 3 of us are not going to be jumping out there to apply for grants. But knowing about them and knowing that we can get more information about them and what they're for, I think is useful and important to us in the policy process. So that it isn't just a line item on the agenda at some point down the road. And there are lots of opportunities described on these pages, but even more in local infrastructure hub and opportunities for training in that as well, and for boot camps and all sorts of online free opportunities that we should share with. I mean, staff probably knows all this stuff, but we don't. And the whole point behind what the Conference of Mayors and the National League of Cities are doing with things like the local infrastructure hub is make it easier for us to understand as policymakers what's possible out there.
Mr. Mayor, were there any cities that were...
Why don't y'all come up so it's just
You
easier?
okay with it?
Yeah, everybody.
Were there any cities there that were on the ball with this? Bigger cities, probably, New York?
Yeah, the bigger cities are plugged in, but, I mean, so we've got one of the Safe Streets for All. I mean, our University Avenue grant is part of Safe Streets for All, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So we're probably doing as well with it as anybody is. But it's all, a lot of these are newish, and so nobody is too wrapped up in it.
I got it.
We have an opportunity to excel, though. It feels like to me.
Well, we're at a good stage where we're small enough to be a small city. I don't know if that gives you any extra points, but like, I don't know. I mean, you talk, like, we're not Newberry or Alachua or people that have, 20 people that work in the city governments, right? Like,
Yes.
Yeah.
And honestly, they've probably got a whole different group of staffers who reach out to those cities that do a different thing.
But also, like, you also have, like, Congress people sometimes put an overemphasis on rural communities because they feel like that's the only, and a lot of them are, a lot of the roads they're looking at are national highways or state highways. And so some of the help they get, I feel like, oddly though, we're also big enough that we get y'all can take care of yourself.
We're in a sweet spot, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we absolutely are. We are unlikely to get a lot of help for obvious reasons. That there are levels above us that are going to be very helpful, but it's not entirely. We're not locked out of all that stuff entirely. Senator Rubio's office has traditionally been fairly helpful, and they're interested in good things happening.
Yoho was helpful on 66, South of 66.
Oh yeah,
Right.
very helpful.
Very like instrumental. So like yeah, but I just said that because some of the rural towns do get a lot of help from their Congress people. Often they're, of course, 75. That's why it's there because it is it's the backup. 62nd is about supporting I-75,
Mhm.
which is federal. But there's a whole bunch of the roads in Gainesville that we need to work on that aren't. They're not going to be federal.
Right.
Whereas in some of these towns, like the whole city is within spitting distance,
Yeah.
a federal highway.
Yeah, and the only reason it continues to exist is because of the federal highway.
Yeah.
But we're in this good space where we've done good work with particularly University Avenue and done some good hand-holding with Florida DOT and with US DOT. And so we get brownie points for all that. They're aware of what we're doing. They like what we're doing. I don't know you, I'm sorry.
Branch is not here, but I guess.
Oh, okay, well, come on over to the table. Yeah. We're not doing anything really official where we need to separate out. Okay. I was excited by the energy that they brought to this meeting, and I was sitting in the meeting and texted Betsy and said, set up a meeting with each of the roads, because I know you guys are interested in transportation. And there are grants in here that we are not going to get. I mean, the Reconnecting Communities program, that's specifically for cities that have been cut in half by, or neighborhoods that have been cut in half by federal highways.
Federal, okay.
Yeah, and we don't have that really. So we're not going to get everything, on here, but there are enough things on here that I think we can qualify for and should, given the opportunity, go after. I don't want to overburden staff, but I also don't want to miss opportunities.
We to that end, like the first 3 grants on here, so we put in a application for charging and fueling infrastructure. That's a GGGRU grant application. Fleet and Dr. Zhu and the GRU Sustainability, McEric have submitted. That's, I think, that's actually several $1 million, I think now. Safe Streets and Roads for All. The city manager and I talked about, and Jesus talked about submitting a second application to fund, more of the University Avenue project, and then we put a grant request, or I think we received the East CBG grant for extending the utility, like whatever it is, the energy efficiency stuff we were funding through ARPA to extend that so I think, yes, I think some of these things we're definitely are on our radar, which is good.
And staff should take heart that I don't have time to hunt all these down. I mean, and don't think I'm just going to go down a rabbit hole with this. I'm not. But it is nice to have access and availability and understanding of some of this stuff. Because often what happens, in my experience, is we get something that appears on the consent agenda, and I don't know what it is. It sounds nice, and we vote for it. And I mean,
Yeah, bring us money.
yeah. But it's nice to actually have a deeper idea of what it is without you all having to make extra time to explain to people who have no idea what we're talking about. Now, what this probably means is we're going to ask more questions, but.
Well, I think it's worthwhile. I mean, when the federal lobbyist was here before and going over a lot of these things, right? Like kind of discussing the grant opportunities. Back then, I think it was before JLAC or any of that. It was like, well, we had just come out of that period where charter officers were resigning and we had a turnover in the city commission. And it's like, we don't want, any of that to get in the way of applying for these grants, and we had no idea what was about to come down the line on us. And so now we're still in this period now where it's where obviously we need to be focused on the thing that's right in front of us, but also not missing the fact that government needs to continue. We need to also be looking for bigger projects and bigger fish down the line as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's probably nice to remind everyone that this is something we don't want to miss the opportunity for.
Right.
I am curious where ARPA is. I know, for instance, my wife oversees the urban gardening program that we applied. Oh no, I think food waste reduction. We applied for a grant there. In order for us to get that grant, even for that money to exist, a lot of money had to move through the federal government from agency to agency to ensure that it wasn't part of that unobligated funds. So that money is still there, but only by the skin of its teeth is the grant that we applied for months ago still in existence today. And I'm sure that's true with a lot of these FDOT grants and things like that, I don't know what's not been obligated, what has been obligated, but I know that a lot of this stuff is sort of up in the air at the moment. I just know the USDA type stuff just because I've been living through it for the last couple of weeks.
That state and local cybersecurity grant, that's what's on the commission agenda this Thursday. Okay, so we received that one as well. The manager had to sign a letter of intent, but because of the super short turnaround, but that's on your agenda for Thursday as well.
Yeah, we have applied for a lot of this one, so that we haven't received any money. But if we look at a lot of, if we want to increase the chances to partner with DOT, the major ones with the big money, if we have about, even DOT apply for it, it's even better, and we support DOT doing that.
Right.
We'd have a better chance.
They also made the point that anything that we can apply for, not necessarily through, but alongside the MTPO, that gets extra points.
And that is, we need a lot of work on that area to have NPO stuff to push for grants. We haven't seen that in some time now. And DOT is always a partner, but we want to push DOT to take the lead. We have a better chance to getting more grants.
So you're saying that if from the perspective of what the three of us have control over, like trying to work with Scott Coons at MTPO to try to see how we can push forward certain things within there, and then we just got to coordinate on. I have not dealt with MTPO very long. I'm a fairly new commissioner, but there's got to be ways that we can push to say this needs to go on the agenda. I feel like MTPO just kind of comes at us, right? Like they just show up, we vote yes or no on it, but it'll be. It'd be nice to actually have some, for us to be able to be a little more forceful within that thing and say, this should go on the agenda, this is something that we need MTPO to do, or, and then try to work with the county commission to get that through.
You look all the main roads are DOT roads.
Right.
The ones that need improvements are
Right.
DOT roads. So they should take the lead and with the backup of the NTPO, and, we provide the information they need, but, I see we have a better chance. Local match is always an issue, is that they want to see local match. You are doing any state road, DOT can also provide the local match for it. They can count as a local match. That would be, to be competitive, that's a good thing too.
So they were, and that part of it is that the venue that I was talking to these people in, but they are very well aware, particularly in states like Florida, that we don't always get the money at the cities to do the things we would like to do. And they want to give us, they said they want to give cities deference in this and not continue to funnel everything through the states, because there are a lot of states like Florida that just.
Because what I mentioned about, there's an argument that sometimes transportation highway dollars get put overwhelmingly into rural areas
Yes.
for very logical reasons enough, but that it is that we have deprived cities of some of those funds that they really need to make transportation efficient and to be a little more equitable about it.
Right.
So I picked up on this administration, this refocus into cities to make sure we're not draining funds. Often it's a lot easier to build a 4-lane highway in the country, and it's just easier for departments of transportation to go after that stuff, and because ours are stickier wickets, and so this seemed like it was more of a purpose of saying, y'all have sticky wickets, but you probably know what you actually want. You just need some help with it, particularly some of these smaller towns. But this idea even, I'm confusing, because we talked about MTPO. Any of this that we would do, any of this, but this is outside of our priority list for MTPO, right? Because you just went over last week.
Anything that's on the priority list for MTPO.
Or is this like this is where we could have the opportunity, particularly what the city likes out of the priority list, that we could go and say, this is one of those priorities over here, our MTPO has already established it, and then go.
That is a way that we can approach this. Anything that's inside the city that is on the MTPO list, we can, as part of our application process, say, look, that this is endorsed by the MPO.
I mean, it
And
might
we
move
get
something
extra
up.
points on that.
But
It
he's
might
saying,
move something faster up. The rest of our, colleagues on the MTPO might like but that also theoretically frees up particularly state money, because we already pay for a little portion. So it may be further down the list than something, but if we have a way to pay for it.
if you get a match, I mean, I'd imagine that would be a good selling point. Like if you say, I mean, this wouldn't be like I'd imagine we wouldn't put something forward and say, this is something that's on our priority list or something we'd like to get a grant for. Also, like it's on the we want to put on the MTPO list and we know with 100% certainty that we will get a match for that. But at some point you put it forward and say, we would like to move this forward in the priority list, I guess, if it gets approved as as a grant. And then there's got to be some way that you'd be able to do that, right?
47th Avenue is a perfect example. It's in city. It's also, on the DOT list to relieve congestions on state roads. So that could be, it's, I don't know what the list is, but it's on the big priority for the city. I mean, I would say that. And that's something we can work with DOT and try to move this project up. If you identify these funds and you get that funding, like you said, you can release money for all the projects on the NTPO list.
And if I remember when the federal lobbyist was here before, he said that just pure road resurfacing and things like that is not one of the things that they're looking at. A lot of it is lane diets. It's more of the sexier stuff that the three of us like to talk about, right?
Right.
But I mean, where the low hanging fruit is university. We're kind of working on those projects. I guess you mentioned Southwest 6 last time we were there, but there's I mean, is that accurate to say that a bulk of the funding is kind of tied up in those more road diets, walkable streets, those sort of things?
So they love complete streets. They love complete streets at USDOT.
Yeah.
And wherever we can plug that in, that makes our path easier.
Yeah, that was a big, I think, push on the Safe Streets for All grant that we submitted. The one, the digital equity competitive grants is kind of interesting. It sounds like it's a new grant that they're developing with the funding would be a TBD, but I'm wondering if, since we have both MetroNet and IQ, whatever they're called, like the other broadband.
IQ Fiber, yeah.
Yeah, moving into the community, we met with MetroNet and had a couple of discussions about sort of where they were deploying and whether they were deploying with with an eye for equity, and we got a type of answer. But if there is depending on how this grant comes out, I'm wondering if we can't leverage some of that to work with those companies that are already, because their build out is multi-year build out. If we can get some competitive grant money and, have some of that fiber built out in areas that we wanted to.
Well, there's lots of metrics they look at. I don't know how they're doing this one, but when it was talking about using ARPA for the rollout, there was a whole map that was going over like which areas would be, like, money could be used for a rollout. I mean, theoretically, like, all of Gainesville on paper is like very poor, right? Like, whether it's poor or not, like the student population here makes it into a lot of like kind of broad opportunity zones. Like, there's multiple metrics you could stack on top of one another that would allow you to expand into areas that, would probably be allowable, at least was allowable under ARPA.
So there's a Justice 40
Yeah.
page that they gave us in one of these. I'll find it maybe.
We've incorporated the Justice 40 stuff into that charging and fueling infrastructure,
Excellent,
because
yeah.
that's been part of like what they've looked for.
And I'll have to go back and find the name of the page, but there's a really convenient, and it forwarded here, so I can't really, I don't know the name of the page from this, but I'll go back and find the name of the very simple page that allows us to drill down by census block of where the needs are for Justice 40 qualifiers. And big chunks of the city of Gainesville are Justice 40 qualifiers. Not everything is. For instance, on the brief look that I took, 8th and Waldo is not. The corner, the Citizens Field MLK corner is not. Across the street is. Everything else is, but not that particular corner. But E-Hetty is. So I think there are probably opportunity magnifiers, I should say.
Yeah, any new grant nowadays have a Justice 40 component in it.
Right.
That's good to hear.
You're sure that this reconnecting communities was federal? Like, originally it was federal money that split up. I mean, we had all kinds of, there's all kinds of road money that flowed through Gainesville, like 8th Avenue in the 60s, and and generally speaking, you pulled it through low-income neighborhoods, like almost entirely. Just if for no other reason, just economic reasons, you would do it, or as well as kind of the racial history
Right.
of the time. But it may be that we would be eligible for some things just by digging through old Gainesville
I
signs.
had a question with it. Is it for projects that were originally received federal funding? Or is it, I know it's not an interstate, but even like Williston Road in southeast Gainesville cuts the community apart a little bit. We may like it, it's the closest we have to like a freeway, because you can get from the interstate, kind of to the other side of town, or to the airport.
Right.
And as Commissioner Duncan Walker mentions, at really high speed. And we perhaps haven't had the deaths there yet, but like,
Well,
I think it can be dangerous.
We have on the same road, just on a different, we call it a different thing. Waldo Road.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly.
Absolutely, people get killed on Waldo Road. They just have, we've had fewer people die on Williston Road.
And
It's actually-
I would argue that even though we probably want 4 lanes, it's a big track road, but like it does split up a community.
Sure.
Because it just the fact that people say, well, oh, they argue, well, that's the marker of what East Gainesville is, as opposed to Main Street, tells me that it is something that splits the community.
I am more than willing to let's find out if there's opportunity there.
I mean, it doesn't look like it's that much money, and they really talking about, what, did it say like 180 million or something? I think I looked it up real quick
Well,
or something.
and there's some really clear, like some famous, like the Cross Bronx Expressway and stuff like that, were just like, I'm sure was what in their was in their mind is what was happening, not necessarily Waldo Road.
So I heard some transportation staff from Chicago really drilling in on this one. I mean, it was a big deal for them and some other cities, much larger cities that really it is very specifically tied to. But that doesn't mean that we can't get a piece of it. I don't know. I am, an inch deep on all this stuff. It is not, I'm not claiming to be any sort of expert. But it lit up all kinds of bulbs in my brain, and I knew that you all would enjoy it. So, and I want to, whenever I go to something like this, if there's something that I find useful, I want to bring it back and put it in people's hands.
Well, I
Staying in my office doesn't do any good.
I was looking at the recycling education and outreach grant.
Yeah.
That's a little further out. I mean, with our zero waste.
And brownfield grants are always useful. I mean, there are lots of opportunities there.
Do we have?
Yeah, those
We have
are-
one more
those
brown,
are-
we have one
Yeah.
brownfield left, right, in the city? Or do we have a brownfield?
We
still?
have brownfields, standard is a brownfield.
Oh, that,
The Wawa on East University Avenue is a brownfield.
Huh.
It is a powerful economic development tool. It takes a little, you need to like kind of know the law, like, but when the Wawa was done, that was, I can't remember, it was a gas station or something was there before. And they hired an attorney who just does brownfield designations in Florida, who walked through the process with our attorney's office and planning staff. And it is a powerful incentive because they can basically, under development, they can, I mean, their construction materials are like half of the cost of construction is basically taxing, like it's a tax write-off. Like there are very good incentives that can help for redevelopment. You just need to be, either have a proactive property owner like with Wawa, or if for a local government, like have some knowledge and be proactive about being able to go ahead and do designations, because it can be a very good incentive for redevelopment.
And that's, you said that's like, that's not a specific pool of money. This is an ongoing.
Yeah, because it's US EPA, so it's federal, at the federal level, and it's administered by the state. I knew a lot more about it when this was going on
That was
several
like
years ago.
17 or 18.
Yeah. But it was really interesting because really did have, because I remember talking to the attorney who was working on it, and it was like, whoa, it's a powerful, I mean, you can see the standard did it, primarily because it's, a powerful tax incentive. But we could definitely be strategic about where we do the brownfield designation.
and it was determined when we were talking about the power district, I think you asked the question, like, would it make sense for us to try to designate this? And I think it was the lady from GRU who said that would absolutely not be helpful to us if we tried to dig in and try to figure out what the environmental issues would be with the hope of getting a designation of that sort.
And really that's sort of separate and apart from the process that's actually laid out. Like for Wawa, like for instance, like DEP had records on what had gone on there. There was like some decommissioned storage tanks, like not, not like Chernobyl,
Right.
level. It's just a matter of documenting and going through the process to do a designation. Like, it's not like you have to, and I mean, we've done a lot of documentation on Power District already, so, yeah, I'm not sure, like, that,
So
that was
the Wawa
entirely
was
accurate.
there was a gas station there, the Dixie Oil Station, that shut down 25 years ago probably. And it just sat there because it was contaminated. And it just, the little shade over the gas pumps just sat there and rotted
Right.
for a very long time because there were contaminated tanks underneath. And next door to that was it was an ABC that was like, there were bars on the windows and stuff. It was a scary looking ABC. And I can't drive by the Wawa without thinking, wow, that is such an improvement.
Yeah.
Because it was the epitome of slum and blight. And it is so, not that a great big convenience store is the best possible use of any piece of land,
Sure.
but it is such a huge improvement over what,
Man, you can get a banana in a Wawa.
yeah.
It's a step up for most gas stations.
Right.
Yeah.
If I can be like, you know what, I need a piece of fruit in the middle of your day.
And there's an ATM in there. And there isn't one 4 miles around otherwise. Headed east at least. So, anyway, I'm sorry that I'm not more directed on this, but I wanted to get things in y'all's hands because I knew that it would be useful and start useful conversations. So,
What kind of grants do we have outstanding that we've applied for at the moment? You've mentioned some of them, I was just curious what
Well,
else.
we got the University
Right.
13 that we applying for that. We have a bus facility. We have the Department of Energy that we sweeten at the end of the month. or tomorrow. So we asked Hinson Ross for a land acquisition for 47.
Okay.
That, I guess, died in Tallahassee. That's the one that we were trying to use to apply for this. Said we already acquired the right of way, and now we need money for construction, so that was the way we applied for that.
Senator Perry did file that in the Senate as well. So it was just one of those that didn't make it past the finish line in the budget negotiations.
So it might not be a bad idea to engage Harry Glenn on some of this stuff and just have a broader conversation, not in a commission meeting, but in more like this where we can actually have a conversation about the kind of things that we as commissioners in a sunshine meeting are interested in without committing the commission to any of it, but just to make sure that he knows what we're thinking about.
Sure. Well, he and I have been talking on a weekly basis. In fact, actually several of these, the SS4A bus facility, the Protect, and I don't think the DOL one was on here, but that deals with the transit infrastructure jobs, the workforce. I think we're still waiting on to see if it would even be feasible. So we've been discussing that. Last week he revisited the idea about maybe a DC trip to USDOT because, the possibility of about 5 to 6 grants, that may be of interest, and I've kind of channeled that through Ms. Yvette and the CM's office to see, before it goes any further. And then the reconnecting communities, I'll double check with him on that because I think this past cycle there wasn't a fit per se, right? Okay.
I'm looking at their grant information on USDOT, and I don't see anything that jumps out as saying it's only for like federal transportation facilities, but I'm still looking at it.
The FTA grant for the RTS transfer hub.
That's on hold.
Well, so I need to get some details on that, and I'll call our person at White House Intergovernmental Affairs, because every time I see him, he says, "Let me know if you need help on anything."
It's on hold for the DOL because of why is it on hold for the DOL?
Well, the
It's a union
ATU
thing.
Internationals, it was more a complaint maybe because of the governor and the unions being 60%, that bill.
That's what I was worried you were going to say. I was
265,
just
yeah.
wondering
So-
if that was the reason, yeah.
Yep.
So we have some grants that need the Department of Labor certification before we can be able to execute, and they kind of put a hold on that because of that.
Yeah.
So,
And there could be a injunction by the end of this month with a federal court case. I think that's the last week of June.
Yeah. So I talked to Paul Ortiz earlier today, and he's convinced that there's going to be an injunction. I don't know if that's wishful thinking, but regardless, at least somebody, up the broader labor ladder is optimistic about it. We'll see.
And you have the second court case out of Leon County as well, possibly a third.
Excellent. Yeah. So, but give me the details on that one, and I'll call Steve Benjamin and see if we can, he may be blowing smoke that he can be helpful, but it doesn't hurt to ask. And we should probably engage Harry on that one also. If we want to make sure that everybody at DOL knows that we are not the governor's office, that we are not all in that same thing, and that it's going to hurt action, the kind of people that the White House would most like to help if we don't, if we are not able to get that grant. So,
Well, speaking of, I mean, I have heard that, related to that some of our community builders are getting letters telling them, don't join your union through your bank account, ACH, don't let them have access to your ACH.
Really?
So there's propaganda on the other side sending out, because that's the one where they're gonna,
They'll decertify,
you
yeah.
know, and so then they're just directly sending them postcards saying, don't do it. Don't let them, you know, as if it's nefarious to sign up for an automatic withdrawal, even though all these people have automatic withdrawal for
Everything else.
GRU and everything, you know, right? Probably half of them have automatic withdrawals. That kind of attitude. I don't know how we can combat it or to send a message, the commission, to our employees. We don't think there's anything nefarious about, I don't think there's anything nefarious when the law changes and instead you want to do this. If you can't do payroll deduction, this is what you do. I'm a voluntary member of United Campus Workers, and that's how it works. I gave over my whatever, they take it out every month. So.
Can we get one of those postcards to anybody that has one?
Seems people post it on like Twitter and stuff, but I haven't seen it in
Yeah.
person.
So.
As far as I can tell, I think for that reconnecting, I think we would be able, or definitely an eligible applicant for a planning grant. So if we let's say we did Waldo Road or something right at 8th and Waldo, connecting Duval and those neighborhoods, I think we could apply for the planning grant. The eligible applicants for the capital construction grant would be the facility owner, which would be the state. It looks like we could apply on behalf of them, but they would need to provide us, endorsement of the application. But it doesn't say anything that it has to be federal. It just says that it should be something. Facility, eligible facility is defined as a highway or other transportation facility that creates a barrier to community connectivity, including barriers to mobility, access, or economic development due to high speeds, grade separations, or other design factors.
So that's exactly what we were talking about at MTPO last week, when we were talking about a pedestrian bridge, which I think everybody's clear that I'm not in favor of pedestrian bridge, but other ways to connect people to the new things we're doing going to do at 8th and Waldo to connect the Duval neighborhood.
Yeah,
We're gonna do a pedestrian bridge at 8th and
Part of it
Waldo.
says railroad as well,
You gotta
right?
listen carefully, man. Oh, you weren't there,
I wasn't
right?
there.
Oh,
Yeah, we had
yeah,
to
just-
tell you in.
No, I've heard all about the MTPO meeting. I have to go in
Highway
here
or
this Friday.
transportation facility.
So, though the railroad is no longer there, arguably a lot of the disconnection there is actually, it's that railroad, you didn't have a bunch of street crossings. The railroad's no longer there, the scar of not having that connected through. And then now we run a large road because there used to be a railroad there, basically. And so some of that connectivity is, the lack of connection is just, you didn't build over a railroad, well, it's no longer there.
Right.
And I know that's perhaps not the true intent of this, but similar to even the recycled glass paths down on Southwest 6th, where you connected part of Porter's, just even to the trail, right? And that's all you need is I don't want to call it a cut through, but but that wasn't us, that was privately funded, right?
No, that was us.
Or that was us?
Yeah, it was transportation.
Was it?
Mhm.
Like even that kind of I've noticed that when I was years ago knocking on doors in Duval neighborhood, I was like, can't get to the trail from here. There's not as many cut throughs, and so that's a scar of a railroad. But arguably, even that basic connection just to get to the street.
So,
just
yeah,
to
it was
the trail.
literally the wrong side of the tracks.
And railroads are always block. That's why we like bike paths on them, because there's not as many crossings. But now we're like, well, people need to be able to get there. I think because I rode the Waldo Road Trail down from 31st down, and I was just like, it's such a great trail. It needs to be wider. And there's some crossings issues, but then there's not as many connections from the neighborhood. And as electric bicycles come, I think people are going to opt rather than getting a second car for their family, they're gonna tell an 18-year-old, I'm gonna buy you an electric bicycle, go. And then that connection to the trail is gonna be even more important. So people get on the trail, zoom off to a job or whatever they're going to school.
Well, just the description that you read there, following that MTPO meeting, that's,
Yeah, it seems like, we through our feasibility analysis are doing a traffic study, FDOT is doing a traffic study, so we'll have some basis for it.
yeah.
At least we'll have some data.
And as we talk about creating good everyday things and not just, Friday night football games or Thursday night football games at Citizens Field and MLK, we have to do something to help people in Duval feel good about just walking over that
Just
100
walking
yards.
in the pool, yeah.
Yeah. And that's going to take extra effort. It isn't something that's just going to happen because there's more cool things there. There's gonna have to be.
Visibility on the road's really bad. Like,
Yes.
there's a lot of pedestrians get hit in the winter because at
Right.
twilight and after dark, if you try to cross Waldo at the crossing or at 8th Avenue, the cars coming southbound can't see you.
Right.
So you're just talking like a street light treatment there, essentially, just add more street lights to the area, or like? I mean, what
Lighting is
treatment are we
part of it.
thinking?
You need to have enough time for the cycle. You need, like, I don't know if the road could be made narrower, that's another question, but it's something that makes the pedestrians more visible. Certainly the signalized crossings help. But then, like at 8th Avenue, you got perpetual motion where there's always vehicles making left turns, so that makes it an unsafe crossing, even if you hit the call button. And they don't see you.
So I'm a huge proponent, and we may never do this here, but I'm a huge proponent of the diagonal crossings, the Barnes dance. I think that's really cool.
The scrambles are just.
Scrambles,
Yeah,
yeah.
well, UF's putting in a scramble.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're putting one on Museum, and one of them, it'll be the first scramble. Of course, it's on campus, so,
But that may be the first scramble in Florida that I'm aware of.
yeah, that's what they said. That's what, I don't know if it was Linda, I think it may have been Linda Dixon.
Cool.
University and 13th has time periods there where you have 2 walk signs up, right?
Right.
I mean, so
That-
which is essentially a scramble. I mean,
That's the one I
same,
want. I want that to be a
Yes.
scramble, but I know that the state probably doesn't. They're never gonna like it because it's back up. But they're gonna put one on, I believe, Museum, somewhere close to the Union, I forget which one. And it's because they do have a bunch of, I think there's bus routes that drop off on this side, and then people need to get to the Union, so they're gonna cross twice anyways. And then they're gonna have a better right at the Union. That connection to their newer stuff's gonna be much nicer, and that's gonna be like raised pedestrian cross. Maybe that's where the scramble is. Maybe the scramble's actually there. I forget. It's either on the west side of the Union, or it's further closer to, I forget the name of the other hall. One of those places they're gonna have a scramble. So we're gonna at least be able to see it and get people to go understand the idea of it.
So I've always thought they were cool, but I saw 2 or 3 of them operating in Nashville last summer. It's awesome. I mean, it doesn't back traffic up. It gives people the confidence to be a pedestrian. And most of the people that I saw didn't go diagonal. They still went the right angles, but everybody was going at the same time, and the cars were pretty patient about it, and it works. You know, nobody was honking their horns at people or anything. I was sold.
I think when you have a no right on red, it bothers drivers. So if everyone understands that everyone at that time is, I think it might cool them down just a little bit.
So we should wrap up pretty soon, but the different thing that we're doing that I think is really awesome is, I don't think it's 18th, beside St. Augustine's on University Avenue where we crossing UF at the Stadium Club, where if you're going north out of UF, there's a bike signal where no cars, it's almost a scramble because it's just for bikes. It works.
Is that where we did the one-way pairs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, but it's a signalized bike
That's
signal.
what bikes,
It's really cool.
That's cool.
How do you, is it because, I mean, are there cameras? How do you, I mean, it's standard, you don't have to activate it, right?
No, you don't have to activate it, it's there. And it's
Yeah.
probably like hours, I'm sure it probably didn't happen at midnight, but I don't know that, I'm not gonna go double check, but at 5 o'clock, it works. And I know this because my wife parks in that parking lot, and I went to pick her up, and we went out there, and it just worked. I'm sure it frustrated a few people, and it's new, so it's extra safe, because people are like, what is this? But, I don't know, it's neat.
Well, just because you're taking the one way, because it's a one-way pair, so you're going there, and so there's no reason to put a green light, because there's no one coming that way. And I don't know, I just like seeing the green little bicycle on
Yeah,
there. Like, it's neat to
it's
see.
neat.
It's like it's a little guy on a bicycle, and it goes here, like, oh, I want a bicycle.
But you've been on it.
You can go to my TikTok. I did, the week it came out, I did a little TikTok about it.
Okay, maybe.
All right, well, thank you all. If y'all would send me the information about the FTA grant, and I'll follow up on that. And, use this stuff, dig around in it. It's worth doing. So, thanks.
Thank you.